How and when can police run the serial number on your firearm? Maybe you're transporting it, maybe you're concealed carrying it, maybe you're open carrying it during a traffic stop, and what's a quick legal playbook on what you can do about it. It's a high stress situation. A cop takes your gun during a traffic stop. You are legally carrying it. Lawful firearm, lawful carry, lawful place. They ask for your firearm. Can they even do that? Are you allowed to say no? You later hear them radio the serial number back to dispatch. Wait, what? Is that even legal? Are my rights being violated? What even are your rights? As an ex-state criminal prosecutor, I can tell you that in most places in America, cops are generally looking for drugs, illegal guns, and drunks when they pull you over. They will most likely want to run your serial number if they can or if you let them, since every firearm post-October 1968 has a serial number. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you a very quick hits guide to keep you alive and how to raise your rights if you are roadside. Here's what you need to know. Guys, let's get into it. All right, you've been pulled over. Context is king, not only in this situation, but in all legal situations. If the cops pulled you over after your Grand Theft Auto style police chase, then yeah, it's going to work out for them. They will be taking your firearm for, frankly, a bunch of different reasons, each one somehow more lawful than the last, most likely, ranging from officer safety, gathering evidence, inventory search. I can keep going while you go to jail. Since you were acting dangerously and you were armed, they can go ahead and run that serial number. But that is likely not the case if you aren't watching this video because your baby mama is holding it up to you in a jail camera. No. As a fellow driver on the road, by the way, thank you for not driving like a maniac from a video game, or if you've never played a video game like Grand Theft Auto, putting it another way, thanks for driving like you're not an ordinary person from Chicago. I appreciate that as a Wisconsinite. So if you were just pulled over and if you were not acting dangerous, this is a normal and common traffic stop for speeding. Maybe it was a burned out taillight, something like that. Maybe you live in one of the nearly dozen states where you must tell cops, you have a duty to tell cops that you are armed when they stop you, or if they ask you during a traffic stop. Some of those states, which includes Texas, Ohio, and Maine, among others, have different rules for if you are carrying with a constitutional or permitless carry versus if you have a license to carry. So you really need to know what your local laws are, even if you're not from there, but you're just passing through. Some of the states to watch out for, again, always check your local listings. Alaska, Arkansas, DC, Louisiana, Michigan, Nebraska, New Jersey, North Carolina, Texas, Maine, North Dakota. Again, check your local listings to stay up with place and time about how these things change. Keep in mind, failing to disclose if you are required to do so or lying about it can be a crime with months or potentially even years behind bars. Choose appropriately. Also, and this is big, keep in mind that about 7 states do not have what we call state preemption laws. This is a really big concept. If you own a firearm, you really need to know about this. Broadly, a state preemption law means that local towns, villages, cities, and counties cannot pass their own gun laws that are more restrictive than at what state level. In short terms, they can't make their own gun laws. They cannot do it. This means that if you cross the street from one city to another city or from one town to the next town, you could have entirely different gun laws if that state does not have state preemption. In other words, firearm laws can only be passed at the state level. Right. Good luck complying with that one. But remember, as the saying goes, ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of the law is no defense. Ignorance of the law is no defense. So be careful if you're in states like California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York. Those are the states that do not have state preemption, and they can change from literally street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood. As always, once more, be sure to check your local listings to stay up to date. Let's just jump into the point where, congratulations, the cops now know that you have a firearm, regardless of whether or not you told them, or maybe they just saw it because it was in something called plain sight. In other words, just laying on the seat, you're open carrying, you're carrying in a chest holster. I don't know what you kids are doing these days in some places, but you get the idea. It doesn't matter. They know. First question, can the officer take the gun? The short answer is almost certainly yes. They can ask for your firearm. Laws and courts give officers a lot of leeway for something called officer safety. I'm not just making that up. Officer safety is the term that you call it in law, officer safety, which enables them to take sometimes very broad steps to, for instance, pat people down if they're busy talking to them on the street and what's a so-called Terry stop. There's some prerequisites to that. Let me know if you want to know more details in the comment section. And they can temporarily take these weapons away while they're having their mutual encounter with you and then give it back at the end. That's kind of the quick hits, low resolution. If they know you have a firearm, they're allowed to take it from you for officer safety. And that's probably going to work just about every single time. I don't really know any judge that's going to not give that to them, even if the state legislature did not directly empower them to take that firearm. If you want to know more on that, officer safety and all that kind of stuff, again, let me know down in the comment section. So now they have your weapon and you're trying to remember what I said in this video, what that Tom guy said. Okay, here's the question that I have to ask you. Is your serial number in plain sight on the firearm? Many handguns have a serial number, most in my experience, that is readily observable without any form of disassembly or modification. If the answer is yes, the cop can just go, there it is right there. Then the officers can try to claim that they can now see your serial number due to plain sight doctrine. In other words, it's not a search, because they can just see it. This generally means that whatever an ordinary person can observe without conducting any searches is fair game. What if your serial number is, however, on the grip, and that grip is covered up by like a Hogue grip or something else, right? Maybe you've got hockey tape around it, whatever else. Now they would likely have to conduct a search, which would need to be legal in order to get to that serial number. Barring other circumstances, that's probably not going to happen. Other circumstances like you're acting dangerously, back to the GTA, the Grand Theft Auto chase, things like that, okay? Keep in mind that many firearms also have a serial number printed on the chamber of the barrel. So even if you go, aha, I've got one of those firearms that doesn't have it exposed, it might be on the chamber exposed in the barrel. So look, there you go. All right, check out what your gun is if you'd like to know, but there it is. You can figure out whether or not it's gonna be plain sight or whether or not they're gonna have to do a search. Another idea too, if you want, is to try to hand them your firearm in the holster, and then you can argue that it's probably not gonna be plain sight at that point. Just a little pro tip, little nugget for watching the channel. Not saying it's always gonna work, but if this sort of thing bothers you and you don't want them running the serial number, that gives you at least an argument. Another key thing to understand, the cops are on a clock. If the serial number is in plain sight, they can, what they will normally do, if the serial number is in plain sight, what they can try to do is to quickly radio that serial number into dispatch, along with probably information about you, the car, and so forth, who will then likely run a NCIC check. That's the National Crime Information Center, to determine if the firearm is indeed marked as being stolen or lost/felony. NCIC only tracks firearms that have been reported in some way, shape, or form. They're not reported as being purchased. They're not being reported as lawfully in use. They're being reported for stolen, lost, felony, stuff like that. So it's not a total registry of what's out there. It's a registry, kind of bad things that have happened with certain firearms. So a return of no record is a good thing. This is not to be confused with an ATF trace or an E-trace request. Those are completely different. And again, if you want to know more about that, let me know down in the comment section below. Police are never allowed to illegally extend a stop beyond what is required to conduct the business of the stop. So if they pulled you over for speeding, they've got whatever is the normal amount of time it is to run a speeding stop. You see what I mean? Doing so constitutes a seizure under the law. So if they detain you for longer, it's an illegal detainer, which then arguably creates a seizure. That's a Fourth Amendment problem. Remember, you are protected under the Constitution from unreasonable searches and seizures. If the traffic stop isn't too long, if it's ordinary, we call that a reasonable seizure, a reasonable detainment, a reasonable search maybe, depending on what we're talking about. If it's too long, it then becomes unreasonable. Hopefully you got there before I did. This is how that firearm, even if stolen, and you didn't know about it, because let's say you bought it for cash from a guy down at Wally World parking lot or something like that, could result in criminal charges ultimately being dropped against you if they were ever filed, because the encounter took too long. And that's thanks to the United States Supreme Court case Rodriguez versus US from actually pretty recently, 2015. All right, so here's the crash course. Once cops know that you are armed, be sure to make no sudden movements unless told, and keep your hands on the steering wheel where the officer can see them. Odds are this is a stressful situation for you, and guess what? It's not exactly unstressful for a cop to be dealing with a traffic stop with somebody that they know is armed. A lot of good cops will say it's less stressful if they think you're being honest and you've told them that, as opposed to just guessing and you seem kind of skittish, but you get the idea. If it's nighttime, I always suggest turning on the interior lights like the dome light of the car, not because I hate the Fourth Amendment and I want everything in plain view, but because I don't want to get shot by that skittish rookie third shift cop who's jacked up on too many Monster Energy drinks, sleeve tattoos, and UFC TikTok clips. Don't need that. There's a lot of things worth dying for in this world. Getting your insurance information from your email because you decided to reach into your cell phone in your pocket isn't one of them. If they ask you for your firearm, I would strongly suggest moving slowly and to narrate before you do so where you are going and what you're going to do. After they have your firearm and leave your window, I would suggest, void where prohibited by law, starting a recording. Use your cell phone. And not because I'm encouraging you to be aggressive and one of those guys that are out there. If you are, look, that's on you. But I want to create a timeline of how long things were taking to ensure that there's no confusion, should it come to it, about who said what from here on out and how long things took. Always be polite, respectful, but also always know your rights and do not be afraid to use them the correct way, not the drunk trailer park way. That was the drunk trailer park way. Just to be clear, that's not the way I'm endorsing. Link to that video down in the description box below. You can always politely ask the officer if you're being detained, whether you're free to leave, as well as to politely decline giving any consent to any searches, and the fact that you're not going to be answering any questions without your attorney present. If officers give you a command, you are likely stuck complying, even if you believe that it's illegal, since it can be a crime to refuse or obstruct an illegal command or an illegal arrest. Again, remember, cops are allowed to lie to you about almost everything. They may be nice people, and they are definitely protecting our community, but you are also allowed to protect yourself and your family, as well as the Constitution, by knowing it and using it. Let me know what you think about this video. Linked to that Supreme Court case down in the description box below. We're going to close out with our ever popular quote of the day, who comes from one of the all-time bests, Patrick Henry, who said at the Virginia Ratifying Convention of 1788, this was ratifying what we now call the Constitution to become the Constitution. Patrick Henry said at the time, quote, "If our defense be the real object of having those arms, in whose hands can they be trusted with more propriety or equal safety to us as in our own hands?" That's a 1788 way of saying, if anyone's going to have guns, it's going to be we the people, not the government. There. I just did a little translation for you. I appreciate you sticking around. I look forward to reading those comments. Be sure to hit like. See you in the next one. Take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.